Hello everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Paper Crafting Saturday. I'm Leslie Watkins. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful spring day wherever you are. We have all sorts of things going on here in the garden. The forsythia is beginning to bloom. I still have a few snowdrops, some scilla, maybe a crocus or two. And the Daphne, I'm forgetting something. Oh, the witch hazel is still blooming. I've got some trees that are sort of staggered. So there's one earlier one and one later one, even though it's the same species. But what I'm most excited about today is, oh, and the daffodils. But this is what's blooming today in the garden, and this is my star magnolia. And I have two of these trees, one in the front where you can see it from the road and where I can see it from my studio window, and the other one is next to the chicken coop, and the chickens love it. And I can see that also from the other window in my studio. So right now they're looking spectacular. There's no leaves, only the blossoms come out first on the star magnolia, then the leaves open up. But can you see how beautiful that is? It's just exquisite. And I know every day my favorite flower changes, but today my favorite flower is absolutely the star magnolia. And if you're looking for a beautiful ornamental tree for your yard or your garden, you might want to consider that one. So let's get started. I thought what I would do would be to show you how to do some quick sketches of the star magnolia. And I'm using a piece of very vanilla thick cardstock. And I'm going to get out my watercolor pencils. So here they are. This is two sets of the watercolor pencils. It's the basic set and then it's the additional set that you can add on. And I do recommend that you get both because you want to have as many selections as possible. If you just don't want to spend the money for both of them, at least start with the first set because that has all the essential colors like the white and the black and the gray. And then it has a smattering of some of the others. You can see here there are this chart shows you the additional colors that you can get, and the chart that's tucked under here is the basic colors. I'll show you what that looks like. Oops. There we go. So these are the basic colors that you get with the first set. So you have I have primaries here. I've got red, yellow, and blue. I've got a green. I've got a brown. You probably can't see it, but there's a white over here. So this is a nice one to get started with, and then you can add on these as you're able to. The other thing that I would recommend that you have is a blender pen, and I'll be using that later. I also have a couple of other additional items here. So I've got the white chalk marker, I've got the Stampin' Write black marker, and then I have a fine tip journaling pen here in black. So I think that with just these handful of materials you can get quite a lot accomplished. And I have a number 2 pencil, and I think I'll use that to begin with today. In the rest of my kit here, I've just got an assortment of water painters. I've got a couple of extra blenders, and this is just an old Wink of Stella, which probably still has some sparkle in it, but I can use that as a kind of a water brush. Now all of the materials that I'll be using today are available on my online store. And I will be posting a link after I finish with the live video of how you can go about getting any of these items plus more. And also I will be posting the April host code, and that host code will entitle you to a free gift from me if you spend $100 or more. So please use that host code. Let me check my settings, make sure that we're live. Slow internet connection today. I hope everything's functioning. Okay, there we go. I can see it. All right. So this beautiful Magnolia Blossom I just cut a few minutes ago, and it hasn't even fully opened up yet. If you look closely on the inside of the blossom, you can see that the petals have yet to unfurl. If it were opened all the way, you would see a lot more of the yellow in the stamens on the inside and the anthers. But that's okay. It's beautiful just as it is. And I think you can also see, if I hold a piece of white paper underneath here, you can see that it's more of a creamy tone, okay? It actually blends in better with this beautiful, very vanilla color of the paper that I'm going to be working on today. So I'm just going to place this right in front of me. Maybe I'll prop it up a little bit with my clip here. That's not working. Okay, I'm just going to hold it for now. All right, so let me zoom you out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And anytime I begin, the first thing I want to make sure of is that I know where the light source is coming from. So in this case, my studio window is to my left. So I want to be able to look at my specimen to make sure that it's illuminated nicely. And it is. I also have a couple of color-corrected lights to help illuminate the surface here so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So there is more than one light source here today. So I'm going to begin in my upper left corner. And I am, again, because of time restraints with the video, I'm going to go for an impression rather than an exact likeness. If you if you have the more time that you can spend working on your drawing, then by all means, you know, go slower than what I'm going to be doing today. And I want to make sure that I get the stem positioned properly. So I'm looking for the center of the flower, which is here, and the axis of that stem, which is coming out like this. And if I look at my stem, I can see that it has a couple of buds on it where the leaves will be unfurling from. They almost look like pussy willows. They're very fuzzy and soft. And there's another one up here. Oh, and there's one, can you see? There's a couple tucked up underneath the flower. There are two little areas where the leaves will be emerging from shortly. So it may be that if I keep this specimen in water, I may see those leaves unfurl and see that blossom open up. Okay, so there's a quick sketch of the flower, but now I want to elaborate on that and I want to add another one. So I'm just going to change the perspective a little bit, and I'm going to put this flower here in the center. So I think you can see that even with just one flower, you can turn it into an entire bouquet if you'd like to, by just moving it around and looking at it from different angles. And as I'm looking at these petals, I'm noticing a lot of color. Even though it's a white flower, I can see all sorts of different colors, and I'll want to make note of those as I continue with my drawing. Okay, so there's two, and then I think what I'd like to do is put another one. Let me see where I want to put this one. I think I'll put this one over here. So I think it's important to remember that your specimen is for reference only. Okay, you're the designer, so you want to be able to use your specimen in a way that suits your overall concept or idea. All right, I think that's enough. I'm going to leave space on the bottom for writing. And actually what I think I'll do is I'll get that started. I'm gonna put some guidelines here. So I'm just gonna make a couple of tick marks. So I'm measuring from 2.5 from the bottom, and I'll just put a tick mark at every 1/2 inch. And then the same thing on this side. Now I know that my paper is nice and square because I used my trimmer to cut this out. There we go. And then all I'm going to do is connect those with a very light pencil line. This is something that will be erased later. But I'll be able to add some calligraphy to the cover. There we go. Okay. And while I'm at it, since I have the ruler handy, I'm going to measure a couple of borders here as well. So I think I'll measure this at 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch. Same here, and same there. Okay, now I can just connect those. And that gives me a very nice text block. And I can take my kneaded eraser. I'm just going to remove these excess lines. And there's my sketch, as quick as that. Now that just took a few minutes, and all I needed was a ruler, a pencil, some good quality paper, and a kneaded eraser, which I'm looking for, that fell on the floor. Alright, I don't see it. Oh, I can feel it. Got it. Okay. Alright, so let's get the colored pencils out. Alright, and I think what I'm going to start with is a pinkish tone, because I see a lot of pink in this cream color. So let's see what I've got here. Calypso Coral, Flirty Flamingo, Melon Mambo. I'm going to start with the Calypso Coral. Alright, so I've got an assortment of colors here to begin with. And there is a little bit of a yellowish tinge to the center of these flowers, so I'm just going to get that started. Even though they haven't fully opened, you can still see a little bit of warmth. And let's see what else. This is Granny Apple Green. And I'm just getting some color on there. And I'm just putting it's the lightest tone of the pink, just in certain places. I'll try to keep my head out of the camera, sorry. I still have my COVID hair. I'm looking forward to getting a good haircut sooner than later. See if I can get this so that you can see this as well. That's not going to work out. Too many shadows if I put that too close. Alright, now let's look at that stem. So the leaf buds are most wonderful silvery, kind of a sage green. And the stem, at least where it's wet, looks very warm brown. And then it gets cool brown where it's still dry and blends into that sage green. So I'm going to start with a gray. This one's called Basic Gray. And I'm just going to begin with a little bit of a tone. Get that started. Add a little bit of green. And I'm going to get some of this dark brown. Start to model some of these shapes. If you're interested in learning how to model form in space, you'll want to look into my beginning watercolor course, which will be starting up again in May. It's a 6-week course, and I show you how to model form using light and shade, mass conceptions. We talk about values and color mixing. It's a very comprehensive course, but easy to follow, great for beginners. If you've had no training whatsoever, this is the course for you. And if you have some art background, it will help. So stay tuned for that. I'll be announcing that in my next issue of Notes, which is my newsletter that comes out on the 1st of each month. And if you're not on my mailing list, go to my website at dandelioncottagedesign.com and subscribe to Notes, and I will send you all the information that you need to know for the upcoming course and other classes that I have coming up. Also, I want to excuse me, let everybody know that I have been unavoidably delayed this month with the excuse me while I get some tea. My classes this month in April have been slightly delayed. So stay tuned for the announcement coming to your mailbox soon. I had a lot of tax work to do and all sorts of other things that needed to be taken care of. So those things will be extended. So if you thought you missed the deadline, you have not. I'm going to extend that deadline, and you will be able to join in both the poppy class, and actually I wanted to show you something. The poppy class is featuring painted poppy stamp set, and this is an example of one of the poppy cards I made using the colored pencils. And it also has a coordinating sentiment set called Peaceful Moments, and this is a wonderful, wonderful set of sentiments in this wonderful font. So that's coming right up. And the journal making workshop, which is going to be a lot of fun. So, and I'm going to show you more journals later today. So let's just keep working on our sketch here for now. And I'm going to start to develop some of these flowers. And I'm starting with a cool tone to begin to pick out some of the petals. Just a little bit here and there. Zoom you in a little bit so you can see closer. I'm going very lightly to begin with. Oh, I see I've got some people joining now. Hi, Ginger. Hey, Linda. Yeah, these star magnolias are just wonderful. Um, they the they grow on a tree that gets to be, I want to say 30, maybe even 35 feet high. I don't know if they grow in California or not, Ginger. Probably in the more northern areas they would. But they are a full-grown tree in full bloom. Early spring is a sight to see. I mentioned earlier I have one growing outside my chicken coop, and my former, recently deceased rooster Lothario used to have a spring ritual that was hilarious. He was so cute. He was a bit bigger than the hens, and they would pretend that they couldn't do it themselves to give his ego a little bit of a boost. But every spring he would go over to the lower branches of the star magnolia, and he'd hop up and he'd pull off a petal, and he would feed it then to the hens one by one. They would get their petals, and it was just the cutest thing you ever saw. Now, I want to be careful not to use too much color on the flowers because I want them to appear to be that creamy color. So I'm going to go very easy on my shading here. And let's go back to my pink tone. I'm just going to soften that a little bit. Because what do blue and red make? Does anybody remember? Okay, so that's coming along nicely. I want to take my blender pen now and begin to soften some of these strokes. And I'm going very lightly. So the blender pens work very nicely on the papers that you can't use the watercolor on, like this very vanilla cardstock. But if I use the blender pen, which has a very fast drying solution in it, that will help to blend the colors and let it dry very quickly before the paper has a chance to pill or pull apart. But I do have to be careful to not go over the same place too much. So I'm moving quickly and going very lightly because I don't want to disturb the paper fibers. Just enough. There we go. Alright, so now I'm going to go back in with my pencil, my number 2 pencil, and I'm just going to do a little more careful observation of my specimen. So I can begin to sketch the direction of some of the petals. I can go a little bit darker in some areas. Here's a place that I can see I could use a little more of this tone. And on some of these petals, I can see that there's a little point. It's a very rounded point. It's not very distinct. Some of the petals just look round at the end, but I can pick up a couple of those little points here and there. All right, and I can look more closely at my bud and see how that attaches to the stem. And just keep going. There we go. So one of the things I have in mind for the next several weeks is we've got a lot of really nice stamp sets that feature beautiful botanical subjects, and I was thinking it would be nice to do a whole series on botanicals to use in our nature journals, as well as the watercolor card club. So the watercolor card club is a subscription class where each month you get a package in the mail with enough supplies for 8 note cards. I'm sorry, four note cards. I got it mixed up with my card class for a second. So 4 note cards and a video showing you how to render a specific subject. And because it's spring and all the flowers are beginning to emerge, there's going to be an emphasis on the flowers for the next few months. And there are a number of stamp sets that are still available that feature a lot of these flowers, things like the magnolia, cherry blossoms, tulips, peonies, all sorts of things. So stay tuned for that. And again, if you want to learn more about the Watercolor Card Club, subscribe to Notes from Dandelion Cottage, and you can do that on my website at dandelioncottagedesign.com. All right, well, I think this is looking pretty good. I just want to get a little bit darker in a few areas. So for instance, the stem, the buds, see. I've got some darker pencils here. Let's see what the black looks like. I'm just going very lightly now. And get into the center. Oh, I'm sorry, did my head get in the camera again? Sorry. All right. All right. So I may continue to work on this a little bit more, but I think you get the idea of how to go about beginning something like this. I just want to get some of the striations and the folds in some of these petals. Give them a little more character. All right, so there is my sketch of the Magnolia Blossoms. So let me see if I can give you a real close-up of that. There you go. Okay, so that's the beginning. And you could always do this on the Fluid 100 watercolor paper if you wanted to get really rich accents. The colored pencils by themselves give you kind of a pastel-y, softer look, but you could also get much richer on a watercolor paper by adding water to the watercolor pencils. But I think that this very nice soft look is pretty for these star magnolias. Now, I'm going to get out my calligraphy pen and I'm going to write something down below here. And I think it's going to be something like nature journal, something along those lines. But I wanted to show you, let me just move these pencils out of the way. So this is one of the nature journals that I've started to make. And this is basically a stitched and bound journal. And this is going to be one of the ones I'll show you how to make in the upcoming workshop. And in it, it has some watercolor paper. It has a pocket to keep extra sheets, and also a pocket on this side as well. And then it's bound together with this linen trim that you can just tie into a little bow, and that will keep all of the contents safe and clean. And what I want to do is I want to create a cover for my nature journal. It's going to look something like this. I'm not going to attach it right now because I want to wait until I have the calligraphy done before I glue it down. But that is the nature journal that I will be using for the upcoming classes on the botanical designs and nature sketches that we'll be doing. So thank you so much for joining me today. I know we went a little bit longer than usual, but I thought you might enjoy seeing how I do something like that real time. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope to see you on Monday for Marvelous Monday. And stay well, stay creative, and I will see you then.